still smell like it always did?
There's certain areas of the building that does.
That was, I got to do a lot of tours at the chamber, you know, you just,
Yeah.
that was the one that was actually the most boring. It really, there wasn't a lot going on. It's smelting, cold,
Yeah.
and stink.
Yeah.
That was it. My favorite's Louis Bacon.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah.
That's a great tour.
Hey, Tim,
Yes.
if somebody has a question for Condon, you may have to repeat it. That microphone there is connected to the computer.
Okay.
So if he can't hear, you may have to repeat it.
And for Condo, you're the only person in this meeting.
Okay.
It may work okay, but I'm just warning you.
Good morning, Condon.
See, I have mine set not to change because I live down near the White River.
Yes.
And ours flips, you can walk from our house to the driveway. My husband used that a few times to explain why he was late out on the road.
Now it's a good attempt.
He was late because he was messing in the shop.
Exactly. Come to this. We're just making sure.
Good morning. We'll call this meeting to order. If we could have the roll call, please.
Sure, Mr. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Blinn,
Here.
Mr. McNeese.
Here.
Mr. Parsley,
Here.
and Mr. Slayton.
Here.
This time I call for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions or additions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Financial report. It is attached, I don't know, Condell is online as well, to do some other things, but he, if you have any specific questions during this time, he could answer those as well.
I have a question, Mr. President. And we'll probably, I'm sure we're gonna talk about this later, but on the financial report,
Just a minute, Bob. Can you hear him, Condell?
can you hear me? You can't?
Talk into the mic.
Hold on. Maybe you can relay it, well, or you
There,
wanna relay the
there, you,
Does that help?
Okay, can you hear me now, Condon? Yes, sir. Okay, it's Bob Slayton. And I know we're going to get into this later, but why not address it right now? On the, and I think you've supplied this information in the past, it's very important in looking at our out years, and I apologize if you supplied it and I sort of missed it. But on the allocation districts, you know, we have the sunset going off in the three allocation districts. Do you have the amount of money that's gonna involve, at least projection? How much revenue are we gonna lose 2026, 2030, and 2039, approximately? And I understand this is kind of a projection, but, can you supply that at this point? I'm sorry, one point what? Okay, what about the 2039, is that? Well, that's so far out, who's gonna care at that point? But anyway, all right, so 1.3 million than 400,000.
Yeah, so 1.3 million will fall off in 2027, so starting 2027, you'll have 400,000 moving forward, and then,
Okay.
2030, another chunk will fall off, which I can get that information.
Okay.
But
Thank you for clarifying that. So,
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, you're good. Okay, is there any other questions on the financial report? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve the financial report. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. The minutes of the January 21st meeting were emailed to you in your packet. If there are no corrections or additions, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I move we accept the minutes.
Have a motion and I thought Mark nodded, or did?
I did.
Okay. And a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Old business. John Sprague, Main Street, Phase 2 and 3.
I don't have an update unless you have any questions.
Any questions for John on Main Street project? Okay, anything else, John, or any other questions for the city engineer? Residential TIF projects. I think we'll do the Condell. Are you ready to give that projections about residential TIF? Okay.
Can we move a microphone close to his thing? So somebody can hear?
You mean it like this microphone?
Yeah, there's another one up by Bob. Hold on.
We're working on technology here.
No problem.
See if that's better. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Condell.
Yeah, so we provided a 2-page document on the proposed housing development. The goal of this document is to kind of show the revenue that potentially be created through tipping a development of this nature. I'll kind of show my screen here. That might help on showing where I'm at when I'm talking about things, so I'll do that real quick. All right. So on the first page of the proposed housing development document that we provided, we kind of showed a table that kind of shows the different types of revenues that this development would create. So at the top of the page here, we have the home appraised values, so the different values that the houses could be appraised at, or what they sell at the market value. We ranged from 150,000 to 225,000. We then took that and discounted it by 30% to say that the assessed value, the value that would end up being taxed, would be about 30% less than what the house appraised for. That's just kind of be conservative. And then from there, we essentially said that each house, its total assessed value, would pay taxes of 1%, since residential properties in Vincennes are capped due to the tax rates being where they are. So it's a safe assumption to assume that each residential property will pay 1% of their total assessed value. So we have a table down here but below that shows, based on a different number of homes that are created, how much revenue would be produced in a given year. So, for example, the selection we went with was a 200,000 appraised value homes. 125 of those homes would bring in approximately 175,000 revenue each year once they're all built. So once all 125 homes get created, as long as they're all assessed at least 140,000, even though they're worth 200, you you would receive approximately $175,000. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, moving on to the second page. So this amortization is to kind of show those revenues coming in over the life of the TIF, and the type of incentive that you can provide to a developer to create this development. So what we assumed was that all the homes would, first off, we assumed that the deal would be completed by January 1, 2022. So that's the closing date. So just, giving plenty of time to figure things out. And from that point, giving a 2-year window for all the houses to get built. So we're assuming that all the houses will be completed by January 1, 2024, which would then mean that they would be assessed and payable starting 2025. So in that yellow column going down, you'll see the first revenue of $175,000 comes in at the end of 2025. At the very bottom of the page, you'll see the total revenues that brings in at 22 years is $3.8 million. We then discounted that value by interest rate to kind of show, what would that $3.8 million be worth today if you were to go to a bank and pay interest on that. And the breakout we got was $2,390,370 would be considered principal. $1,459,630 would be considered interest at a 4% interest rate. So essentially, you could provide an incentive up to $2.3 million in today's value to a developer through this type of deal. The key point to this is that providing revenue as the revenue comes in over the life of the TIF. So, over 25 years, each year you provide whatever revenue you guys collected. And so you're not providing the money up front. There's not a bond issuance that actually happens with the bank in order to get that money up front. But this is how much revenue over the life of the TIF you could generate if this type of development was created. Any questions?
Does anybody have questions for Condell?
So, Condell, I'd have a question about the total revenue per house. Okay, so the total revenue per house, is it a 1-for-1? So that property is at $140,000. We get there's $1,400. Does that money get disseminated through other taxing entities, or does all that money come to the TIF? Because it's
with this housing development, we assumed that since there's just farmland there right now, that all of the value of the property would be increment. Since right now there is no development, so yes, it would all go to the TIF. So that $175,000 would all be collected by the TIF.
okay.
I have a question. If I'm reading this correctly, are you going to relay the question to him?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay. Is this saying that essentially we would, out of our general revenues, we'd have to subsidize this between $160,000 and $170,000 a year? If you take the TIF revenue and you deduct it from the total cost, does that mean, you bankers can answer this, but would this cost us $160,000, $170,000 a year out of our overall revenue? Is this
So, good question, Bob. What this is trying to show is if we were to create this new development of 150 homes, approximately 125, how much new revenue would it generate on its own, so we could decide how much of that. So this is essentially to show a wholesome picture of how much new revenue would be generated by doing this development. So if you know how much new revenue is being created, you can then decide how much of that you would want to use as an incentive up to the limit of the max, which would be the whole thing. Now I know I believe the developer requested, had three things that they requested, one of which was, could you do a housing TIF? The answer to that is yes. One of which was, could you provide, the revenues back over the 25 years, 100%. That's what essentially this represents. This is the total revenues that this development could produce if all the houses were created in 2 years, under the metric of being that they are worth $200,000 per house, and there's 125 of them created. You would end up seeing over 25 years, 3.8 million in revenue. The third thing they requested was an additional 200,000 per year from your guys' current existing TIF area. So the one that this page in front of you right now would be a new TIF area. That 200,000 per year at 7 years would come from your current TIF area. So in a whole, if you accepted that entire offer, you'd be looking at providing 1.4 million from your current TIF area, in addition to 3.8 million from the revenues that this new development itself would create. Does that help clear up the question a little bit?
Well, I'm still, someone's gonna have to provide me with a tutorial at some point, because I'm not quite getting this. Yes or no, or not yes or no, but we would have to obviously substantially pay for this to meet this bond obligation. We'd have to pay for it out of general revenues, right?
Yeah, so this page in front of you, the amortization currently in front of you, would be new money. So you'd be paying for it by itself. So if the development gets created, if you go make the new 125 homes, there's going to be new money that's produced. This is showing just that portion. So if you gave them all the new money that they created, you'd be giving them approximately 3.8 million. So it'd be new money over and above what you're collecting today, because there's a new development, and simultaneously that new money that you're collecting, you'd be providing to the developer.
That would be new money collected from the creation of a residential TIF, which we don't have now. So the 3.8 provided all those lots sold and were built upon in that amount of time would be the revenue generated from that particular parcel or that particular area.
So you could essentially you could give up to 3.8 million, and you would not yet have touched your current TIF area that you have. This is a brand new TIF area. Now, with that in mind, that 3.8 million is over 25 years. It's variable because the house is going to have different appraised values, and then we used an interest rate to kind of discount it back to show what it would look like in today's dollars. The biggest thing here is this again is not really a bond issuance where you're issuing with the bank and getting money up front. This is the developers accepting revenues over a 25-year lifetime. So there's no cash transaction at the beginning. This is after the development gets created and it's performing, they start to collect on that. The better it performs, the more the houses sell for, the higher they appraise, the more incentive they get. So it's kind of a performance-based structure and isolated to that new area.
And that's based on 125 homes with no revenue the first 4 years, because giving that grace period of those 4 years.
Yes, that's assuming that no house is created, or the houses are not created until they'd be finished by January 1, 2024, and there is 125 homes that essentially sold for $200,000 and appraised for hopefully $140,000, or assessed for $140,000.
Is this a typical scenario of what you're seeing in other communities that you work for?
So we haven't, you guys actually have a really unique scenario. So essentially, since your residential, your tax rate is such that all your residential homes would be capped at 1%, you're actually able to provide the best case scenario to a developer they could get anywhere in the state, because you're going to collect the most amount of money on each residential home at 1%. I mean, that's the cap state. Other places, if they want to do this exact same development, if, you know, rates and things weren't the same as Vincennes, they wouldn't actually be able to provide the same amount. So for your guys' case, I actually think that in this kind of scenario, you really sit at a kind of a best picture of how much incentive you can provide based off creating of a residential home. Because you guys, again, can capture the max amount of revenue anywhere that you could get in the state, so that no one can really provide a better picture than you could. Since you're at that 1% cap, I definitely think that, you know, with 2.3 million of incentive, as long as the developer doesn't need cash today, there's ability there to come up with some deal. Now, you don't have to give 100%, or, I mean, there's different structurings on exactly what you guys would want to do, but this is just kind of to show you a picture of what potentially exists if you were to create that number of homes. Very frequently, there are deals that are done as such where the development itself, the new revenue it creates, is what generates and fosters that development itself. So using its own revenue to support its development for the incentive. That's something that's very common for any kind of development. It's very nice when it itself is generating the money to support it. So yes, I would say that's something that frequently happens if you get it to work out that way.
And a scenario like this obviously would place the risk upon the developer.
Yes, if they do not produce the homes, they don't receive the revenue. So it's well structured to make it performance based. The better they perform, the more incentive they receive. But the biggest thing on the developer side is it usually works best when you have a relatively strong developer that has cash up front and can make the development happen, and then they receive the incentive over time. That's kind of the biggest thing, is can they afford to do the development without cash being provided up front. Based off of I thought that was potentially an option with your guys' developer due to the fact that their request was money over 7 years and potentially this also at receiving the revenue over the 25-year lifetime. So with that being the case, if we could reduce it to just being the 25 years, I personally would recommend not transferring any cash aside from what you can generate from its own development, this revenue here, the new revenue from the new area.
Any other questions for Condell?
I'm doing math.
Do what, huh?
I'm doing math.
Okay. Do we want Condell to remain online for the rest of the meeting, or how do you guys want that to happen?
Yes.
Okay.
If-
Condell, we'd like you to stay on if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. No, I'm here. If you guys have any more questions, I know this is big stuff, so feel free to ask.
Thank you. Thank you for your work. Oliphant Project, anybody from REM want to speak? Sure Clean Residential Project.
Can you guys hear me okay? I'm probably out, if you don't need me to come over to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's for the radio.
Good morning. We have been in committee meetings, I guess. We were with Area Planning Plot Committee yesterday. We are on the agenda for the next City Council meeting and the full Area Planning Committee. So hopefully we'll get those, the things passed that we need to get passed to keep this thing moving. As soon as we can clear all the hurdles with that, we plan on breaking ground. So as soon as we can get those things done, we're ready. So any questions?
So we talked a little bit just previous to the meeting. Some of that property back there is zoned commercially right now, or light industry.
It's C1, I believe, is what some of, or C2. We have a mix in there. There are R1 and C2 I believe is what it is, where the chicken factory or
Yep.
hatchery, whatever it was at, is commercial. And then there's another spot on Broadway that is a small piece that's commercial. And then there's residential, a few residential in there as well. So
Right,
we are
and-
trying to get those all zoned for us as well.
And what you're doing is zoning those all in one unison, so you guys will be able to build without
Correct.
the restrictions. There are, I know we kind of talked in the zoning ordinance that was put forth by the Area Plan Commission, there's a depth requirement. What you're looking for is a different type of zoning that wouldn't require that
Correct.
necessarily.
It would be a, it's a PLU or PLM, I can't remember what the
remember off the top.
zone we're asking for. And it basically, you stay in the standards of the 40% footprint, we stay in the standards of the square footage of lot, but it gives you some variances on width and depth of the lots.
Okay.
So those were a couple of items we needed. There's already some precedent set because of lots that are in the area right now. So we wouldn't be smaller than those. We would stay in our 40 percentile range as far as your house can't be bigger than 40% of the lot. And so there's some things like that we're trying to work through. And that's why we're asking for the zoning we are.
And what I know about the 2000, built in 2000, really passed in 2004 zoning ordinance from the Area Plan Commission is that it was built with more idea of new subdivisions being put in
the county.
in counties.
Correct.
So it created this 120-foot depth of lots or greater that it required, and that doesn't. You think about a lot of houses in the city or even subdivisions that don't even come close to that in depth, and so this would be. I think what you're going to ask for is more of a neighborhood standard or
Correct.
a city standard, and I think
Correct.
that that's going to work well. So,
Yeah.
that's what's going on with them.
Anything else?
Questions for Tony?
Thank
Have you worked out? Yeah, Tony, have you guys worked out utilities and that kind of stuff already?
We have to, until we get the full plot done, we can't take it to Vectren or Duke because they only like to do it once.
Yep.
They don't want to see changes come in afterwards. So once we get the approval from Area Plan and from the City Council, then we can take it to Duke and get the layout on utilities infrastructure for electric. We have talked to them a little bit just to kind of get an idea of where the power would come from. Now that we're looking at it being a cul-de-sac and not a complete drive-through, then it's kind of changed it a little bit, but it's made it better for them. So.
And understand that goes from council to area plan to back to council to
Correct.
have that work
Yeah,
right. So,
yeah. We're hoping that we can put a shovel in the ground before summer. So
We'll get
hopefully
you
we
there.
can get there.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks, Tony.
Lincoln Heights subdivision. Butch or David or Eric or all three?
You get all three today.
The BDE of
Yeah.
whatever it is, BED Farms, BED
Yeah.
Food Services, BED Construction.
If that scenario was correct, it'd probably be a no-brainer, but for Vincent's to build, 125 houses in 4 years is probably unheard of. I don't think it would happen.
I think that's my concern too, Butch, when I looked at that number, and that's why I asked the 125 houses.
Yeah. Our scenarios were more like, if we could build 10 a year, we were gonna be happy. So you're looking, something like that.
Sure.
10 to 15 year build out. So that greatly changes, the money
The
that
scope.
he's saying there and
Yeah.
everything about that. So I think that's when we look at it and say, we just put this together to say, understanding the financial constraints the RDC has, but the need for housing in Vincennes, that's what we're proposing here. So that's, the 200,000 a year is something that's just gotta lower the risk because I don't think we can build out like that. And then, of course, the financial reward is how quick we can get people to build those lots out. The local builders, what the sales are, what the housing does. There is an upside if we do build it out quick. There's also quite a bit of risk here to where if the houses don't sell and what happens there. So that's why we ask, and I guess the answer was yes. I thought I understood that yes, you can set up a residential TIF, and yes, you can pay out all the money to the developer that's generated. I guess it's moved to 25 years under the new changes, but that's what we would look at. So I guess that's what we're asking today is, to consider is the 200,000 for 7 years, if the RDC can do that. And then the other answers that they would vote on would be to set up the TIF and to agree to give the developer the money of that TIF, the 100% for the full life of it.
So I got a question for Condell on this. Are you there? So he's discussing, and this is all hypothetical at this point. I'm not on their point, but on this question, 200,000 over the first 7 years. So let's think about if the RDC, in a sense, fronted that money to a residential TIF. Could the residential TIF pay back the RDC for its investment, or the current TIF zone for its investment?
So,
I know that gets in some crazy questions there.
yeah, no, I mean, I think a structure of that nature could exist. However, I think that would, definitely move a lot of the risk to the RDC versus the developer. And then at the same time, the developer did request 100% of that. The residential revenue is also coming back to them. So that if that's happening, there would be no revenues for the RDC to pay back itself with.
Okay.
So
But that is possible.
I would say that if they,
Understanding that,
do let's say they just wanted the 7 years, 200,000, then that would mean you could still TIF this area and it would generate new revenues if you had no obligation to pay it somewhere else. However, you guys now are obligated to pay 200,000 regardless of homes. I mean, there would be
understand.
legal documents drafted on how that would function, but that would move the risk more your guys' direction significantly.
Understood. I just want to know if it's possible.
I think that's a good question. I think also a question I have, and I know we've talked about this some, and with Kirk Bushy from Water Utilities, if we were to upfront any of that money for infrastructure enhancements or installation, there is that rebate that comes back as people hook onto the water and the sewer. I would want, and this could all be negotiated, obviously, but I think we would want to at least look at if the RDC's paying for it up front, that we would be the recipients of that reimbursement, rather than the developer. Because otherwise I feel like that's kind of getting paid twice for that one specific project of the infrastructure.
I think that's our original ask, though. If you gave us the full 2.3, then you could have the residential TIF at that point.
No, that's not what I'm
He's
talking about.
Kirk's money.
Oh, Kirk's money, okay. I thought you were talking about.
Yeah, right.
I think that all goes, like I say, it's a lot of risk, and if it all works great, there's money to be made and all that, but there's also the downside. So I think, if the RDC is willing to take risk, then maybe that should be paid back. But if they're just gonna commit to, the TIF and this, and all the risk falls on the developer, then it changes this game a lot, to where, it's still very risky. So, it's one of those things, to guess how many houses, it's never been done here before, to say, how quick can we build 125 houses in a subdivision in Vincennes?
Yeah.
It's unheard of. So, I'm not sure. And I know that money changes a lot when you play with those, as we've looked at, when you go to 6, 7 houses, it gets really lean, and all this money probably would be, with interest and everything like that, gets really tough, so.
I don't disagree, and I don't mean that, I'm talking about the reimbursement to RDC if we provide that 200,000 for 7 years.
Right.
Is what I'm talking about, not if it was just the TIF money going to you.
Right.
So,
I think at this time, we're just, because of the risk, we're asking for, Kirk's money, which would go to the developer, and then this money, the 200,000, and then the TIF money. I think that's would make us the most comfortable, is if, because of the risk, is to put all that money and say, it's all on the table, to do this, because, like I say, I just think it's pretty speculative right now to say how quick that's gonna build out.
right. Any other questions for the knee houses? Or comments?
So in this subdivision, what is the total possible amount of lots that could be done?
We're still working on that. It's 129. As we talk to the city, they are very, I guess, I don't know what the word would be, but they really think that sidewalks should be used, and that could do away with several lots once we get it redesigned.
We do have a complete street ordinance that has to be followed, and I agree
And we
with
wanted
that.
to do away with that. I think everybody kind of talked about that they would prefer that it stay in place. And so, of course, the cost of that would have to be added in to look at that. And then also, how many lots that would do away with if you start figuring in sidewalks, if it would do away with one lot or two lots or what it would do.
And drainage, of course, detention pond, retention area kind of thing, would that, is it one lot or two lots in this location? Are you guys doing some preliminary looks at that as well?
They
How
had
much would that take up?
I think there was 2 or 3.
I think it was in that drawing maybe that we
Okay.
originally submitted was, I think they had 3 retention ponds
that right?
drawn into the subdivision. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
And like I say, that was all very, they didn't come up and do a site. That was all just based off, what we sent them and all that. So it'd have to be, all that would have to be redone and re-engineered and all that.
Well, I think that, and I'd like to hear from each other commission member, but at this point, they kind of need to know what we're thinking at least. I don't think we need to give a final answer today by any means. I don't think we're prepared to do that. We said at the last meeting that we would wait until the housing study is complete before a final decision was made on the project. And I think they know kind of where I'm at on it. I'm concerned about the current TIF money as it goes away with the drop off. That's a significant hit. We just heard today $1.3 million. I'm also very concerned about housing in the city of Vincennes. But with that said, I think it's going to be tough to do that 200,000 for 7 years. It's going to be extremely tough. Those are just my thoughts, and you knew that already. And I've always said, everybody knows that we're each one vote. So, there may be, everybody else thinks that's the wonderful thing. Doable. I think it's wonderful, but it's not, I don't know that it's prudent, but that's my thoughts, so. But I think they do need some kind of direction on where they need to go and, with the landowner and that kind of thing, so.
I agree. I think you guys have been here the last 4 months. Just trying to think off the top of my head. And as I've said, I am 100% supportive of this project. And just like Tim said, we've got a huge housing need. I worry the financial aspect. I'm 100% in favor of moving forward with a TIF residential area, and we've got a lot of steps to even cross through before we can even get to that point, and getting that started. And I think my personal feelings, and again, I'm just one vote, but I'm ready to get started with the residential TIF and at least getting the process moving down the road. But I don't know that we can commit to this project at the present, and until we really get that ball rolling on the residential TIF to begin with.
I share the same concerns. We really have to sharpen our pencils, and I don't know if the pencil sharpener, but we also, and I'll state the obvious, we also have to look at it's not all dollars and cents, it's all the other benefits. I don't know how you measure that, and maybe, if you can't find the money, then you can't benefit from the things that, all the other non-measurable benefits. But I just think we ought to look at it very carefully. But I know that the barriers right now pretty steep, but, it's a tremendous vision and a tremendous need for this community. And, to focus as much as we can on, on the benefits that, will accrue to this community that, I think will be economic, but they won't show up on the balance sheet. I guess they won't show up on the balance sheet, and I don't know how you factor all that together.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody else?
I appreciate the, information we got, but I think 125 houses in that period of time is gonna be, I'm not sure if it's achievable. And so while the information is good, I'm not sure that it's really gonna help us a whole lot on that. I think we need to look at the TIF, but, realistically, I'm not sure that we can do that kind of volume.
I don't think we can do $200,000 over 7 years without a commitment to pay back the TIF, pay back the current TIF with a residential TIF. I don't, but I'm not too sure we could do the 200,000 based on what other projects would come before us. But I guess we just have to set, at some point, we're gonna have to look at some priorities and stick with those goals along the way. I mean, the biggest house buying segment of our population is 27 to 33. Those are the people that we're looking to recruit to our community. I mean, what are we after? And that goes beyond the RDC. That goes to the city and the county and what we're looking to attract to Knox County and Vincennes. And those people that age demographic bring kids with them too. That is what we're after. Now, where's that on the priority list for the city, county, and this board? Those are questions that I think that, honestly, we're not prepared to answer. We haven't had those discussions in depth. So,
There is a timing issue too. I think there's some incentives going on to people to move into Indiana right now. And, you know, you talk right now about, you know, the number of people that commute across the line from Illinois to Indiana for jobs every day, and now they're offering an incentive and all that. So there's a lot of time frame going on right now to capitalize on a housing project. So, you know, I know
right now, over the next 4 or 5 years, this is the time that 27 to 33 group is the most populous in our country.
Yeah.
Also, it's the time to strike from Illinois. I agree.
Well, and you're also seeing a lot of, like, in the Princeton market where you're seeing such growth of, you know, workers that, you know, would probably live in Vincennes, you know, and then you're seeing what all these other communities are doing to attract these people. So just not to miss out is something that it's a risk we're taking.
125 homes is pretty tough. I agree. Where would we find the workers? That's the thing.
I think we're also to that point where we've got to look at some different silos. And again, I've said my comments on the residential TIF and that I do believe we need to start moving forward with it. But I think within those silos that residential TIF is one silo, but we've got, you know, individual lots and homes out there that could certainly be developed, and that becomes another silo. And we've got to have the flexibility as a governing board to be able to move wherever or navigate. And I think those are some of the things we've got to place a focus upon so that we are ready to move forward.
As I look at this, you know, after we pay off the Main Street bonds, we don't have a lot of commitments locked in. Now, you're right, if we did this, we couldn't do much of anything else. But, you know, rather than shotgun, I mean, this is a concentrated impact. And I think that's what we would have to decide once the bonds are paid off for Main Street. I mean, there's not a lot locked in. There's lots of potentials and there's lots of ideas and there's lots of possibilities. But I think this would boil down to almost a concentrated fire that would have this and similar projects. I'm not just identifying this one, that would have an amazing impact on this community. And so, I think that argues for concentrating the resources to have the most impact, the biggest bang for the buck. And I kinda see this as a big bang for the buck, when other projects we've supported in the past might be more secondary in nature. So, do we hold our fire, or do we concentrate the fire? That's what those are my feelings.
Well, hearing everybody's talking, I think that we'll at least get some steps ready for how to get started on the residential TIF, with Dave and others, so that we can get that started. I know you're not getting a definite yes or no today, and it is just hard to do. And it's all about risk, and we're looking at it just like you are at the other side, so.
Yep.
I think we're obviously all interested, it's just how we get there. And, we, not just we, but when I say we, the city and actually the county, everybody needs to be figuring out how we get there. And, I think unfortunately that's the best we can tell you today.
Okay.
Is that, we're certainly interested, we just gotta figure out how to pay for it.
Sure.
Obviously, we'd like you to pay for it. That's real.
And we'd like you to take the risk,
Yeah.
but other than that, you know.
I understand, and I understand both sides of that.
Yeah,
And someplace we gotta get to where we're there and everybody's good.
sure.
Maybe there's a halfway.
Yeah, there's gotta be someplace that we get to, so.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you
Yep.
for your persistence. It's greatly appreciated. It really is. First City Development, Matt Hendrickson.
I like that name, Matt.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, I believe I'm here to ask for some help in acquiring a few properties.
Sure.
And I believe we sent some stuff in to Cheryl on the list that I was provided with. And I don't know which way to go or how to start or whatever you guys want to do. You have questions or comments or whatever you want me to say, or?
So Dave, these are 3 properties that are currently in the RDC's portfolio, so to speak, that we own here at the RDC, or they're titled to us. Is that correct? You don't know? Brad, I'm asking, then Brad, they are? Okay. And then Matt is now requesting those. Did you, in your request here, is there the type of homes these are?
Yeah, there's a price range,
There's a price range?
$100,000 to $200,000.
That's correct, yes.
Hey, and maybe I'm sure, I just answered my own question.
Okay.
Cheryl emailed that and I missed
Mhm.
this, the addresses of the property. Did you all see that? Because I missed it.
They are, okay, she emailed it.
Well, 513 State, isn't that what went to, no?
703.
Okay. Good.
513,
Yep.
is that where the house got a tree falling on it? Is that it?
It's
No.
right against the Doomie's fence.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, you're not asking for money, you're
No,
just
sir.
asking for the lots, and we
Yes.
will there is a process, and again, it's not an overnight process. Maybe by spring, maybe we could have, those lots transferred. We would need, and I'm kinda talking, what Dave will get, if we approve this, Dave will get with you on what's needed.
Matt, do you have any renderings of what the houses would look like? Do you have any drawings at all?
No, nothing formal yet.
Okay.
So, and what we were trying to do was just say, hey, we're gonna take the community that these lots are in and try to present it to where the houses are what's kinda like in the community, not build something there that doesn't fit or,
Okay.
and just make it, blend in with the community and not be something that
Sure.
doesn't belong.
These are all bare lots right now.
They are bare lots. And, one thing we looked at on a couple of these lots is if we did a duplex and we had to meet the criteria of the parking and things like that, if we can, on these lots, make that work. That was one thing we were looking at, and that way it's, a couple of them are houses I think would be better suited for that neighborhood, and some of the others I think where they're at would be, a duplex may be better for, just to have tenants instead of someone trying to say, hey, we're gonna sell this house to you. It may be better to rent in that area instead of having a house to try to sell then later on after we build. So, and in turn, if we build a duplex, that should be more tax money coming in than just a single residence home for that area.
And if you do a rental property, would First City Development
Yes.
be the owners?
We would, everything in our attention right now, everything that I'm doing, I intend on to build it and then sell it. And not to maintain or hold any of these under First City Development. I would, and that's my intention now. If it's right or wrong, I don't know right now, but that's my intention, is to build and then sell.
You're not into property management.
Been there
No.
once,
Don't
don't
wanna
care
do
to
that.
do it again.
I can't blame you.
The only reason I ask that is because of maintenance,
Yes.
property maintenance and
Yeah.
code maintenance.
And I have spoke with a couple people, and they said, hey, you keep these things reasonably priced, you build them, I'll buy them in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So, and I've had two gentlemen talk to me about that, and so I said, well, I've dreamed of it for 6 or 7 years,
I
talked
know.
to several people around town about it, and now with this, I think it's a way that I can try to get my feet in it and start building a couple of them and go from there.
Matt and maybe Brad, utilities to this property, these properties they're all right there handy. They were all homes before on all these lots?
That is correct.
Well, anybody else have questions for Matt?
Do we need a motion to begin the process of transferring? I would make that motion.
Thank you.
Have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, same, motion carries.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Get to work.
Mr. Rolligan and his office will get in touch with you at some point.
I would if I knew who he was.
Okay.
Brad will get you taken care of there, Dave.
We'll get that to you.
Brad Snyder said it's-
Okay. New business. Brad Snyder? Randy, okay.
Okay, one of the houses that was torn down with the blight, 915 North 9th, it was probably in the first sequence of houses that we did. The lot was given to us, or the house was given to us by Daryl Bateman. The house title wasn't clear, so we couldn't really proceed ahead with it. We allowed it to go to the commissioner's sale, and the city acquired it through RDC. It was tore down, and it remained, at the beginning, the partner was the next door neighbor, Spirit, I forget her name. Yeah, Gray Wolf's Spirit Woman. But we couldn't give her the title because we couldn't get clear title to it. But she was always under the assumption she was going to get the property. But when it was tore down, it was in the RDC, and now she's requesting to get it put back in her name. So that's kind of where we're at right now with it.
The way that worked in the beginning, if you remember, the city was encouraged to find partners, and a lot of the partners would have been neighbors. That's why this happened, and then it got tied up, and actually this should have just been transferred to her rather than put in RDC at the time. So I think Phil had met with this gal and told her that she could get this property, and we even signed an agreement way back. So my suggestion is that we get her this property that was promised to her as a partner in the very beginning. As this program went along, it changed to where eventually the city could just take them and put them in the RDC, or we could have kept them ourselves. So that's why the confusion happened, I think.
Has she been maintaining the property and mowing it and taking care of it?
Yes, she has.
Yeah.
to me, I'll make that motion.
Yeah.
That's the, obviously right thing.
Have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Now she gets to pay taxes on it and mow it.
Yeah. Approval of claims in the amount of
It's right here. $230,157.94.
Is there a motion?
That is a motion.
Okay, from Mark,
I'll second the motion.
second by Steve. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. RDC member miscellaneous. Hearing none. Next meeting, Cheryl.
Looks like that will be March 18th at 9 a.m.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Condell, thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate you letting me attend virtually. Yeah, roads are not gonna be a fun drive. Thank you so much.
Snowing here today,
Understand,
too.
yeah. And don't forget we have signatures. Where'd Greg go? Did he already leave?